Outperformance Service Family is a Solid Rock Radio business ministry partner who offers turnkey e-commerce website design, marketing, and converged technology consulting. Online at outperformancemarketing.com. Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Ben Dixon, you're from Virginia.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am.
I started noticing some of your covers. How did that idea of doing metal covers appeal to you?
Well, actually, it started out as a way to practice mixing because, you know, I wanted to do my own music. I started out on a little iPod 5 with an iRig, sitting back here making really, really bad demos. I was like, okay, I want to put out some of my music, but it sounds really bad. And so I was like, well, I want to practice on something that's not mine. And so I got some worship songs. I was like, I guess this will be a cool idea. I'll just work on these. And I did a Jeremy Camp song. That's the first one I put up a very long time ago. And it just became fun. I put out my first album the very beginning of 2020. And I was just like, I guess I'll just keep doing the covers thing too on the side because it's just fun. But yeah, it started out as a way to practice rather than mess up all my own music. But
well, you haven't messed up any music that I have heard so far.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, I always love people like you that will put a different spin on it, you know, than before. You know, the metal spin especially is my favorite. So you mix and master all the covers and all your original music yourself?
I mix it all. I just recently started doing the mastering side of it, but there's 3 singles I put out that I had Jeremy Steckel from Wolves of the Gate. I had him master those. Actually, it might have been 2. But yeah, The Brightest Light and Hard Pressed. Now I'm trying to get into that, doing the mastering myself as well. So I had Jeremy do those because I was like, I don't want to botch this. It needs to be loud enough, but it can't be too compressed. And so I just sent it off to him. He nailed it. I was like, great, you know.
Well, which one of your covers has been your favorite?
Oh, man, my favorite. I don't even have a solid answer for that, honestly. Probably Psalm 46, the Shane and Shane cover. I like that one, and I like I Will Follow. And this answer will probably change in a week, right. I think those 2 probably.
Which one's been the most successful so far? Definitely
Psalm 46. That one's probably my most popular song out of anything I've done, is that cover.
I kind of dig the Extreme Days Toby Mac cover. That was really fun.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That started out as kind of a joke. Somebody put on Facebook, like, who are the original, like, metal guys? And they're like, well, Toby Mac was, rocking out. And so was, Jeremy Camp back then. And so I was like, it'd be cool to take one of those songs and turn it into a metal song. So I was like, Extreme Days is perfect.
It is.
So, yeah.
I love that. It was sort of like reminded me of Relent doing Jesus Freak. Have you heard that? You have not heard Relent's version of Jesus Freak?
I guess I need to go check out that.
After this is over, you go listen to it.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
How many instruments do you play? I've seen you playing bass and guitar.
I play, bass, guitar, and I play a little bit of drums. I wouldn't call myself a drummer. I'm kind of a fill-in with that. So it's one of those things, if it's needed, I can kind of fumble through it and get something halfway decent, stay in time, but by no means some killer drummer. But yeah, bass and guitar mainly.
Okay. And how'd you learn to play?
When I was about 6 years old, I got a guitar from my grandparents, and my dad showed me 3 chords, and kind of from there I just kind of started figuring things out. Picked up the bass. I just wanted to be able to be used at church in that capacity if needed, so I learned how to play the bass. But I grew up in a household full of musicians, so lots of influence there from my family.
Well, who does your drums on your track?
I write them out. It's programmed for the majority, but
okay.
Yeah, so I typically will sit here and tap something out on my desk to make sure it's possible, and then I put it in the computer, and a machine plays it for me. So
you had a drummer, I think, for the videos.
That's my friend David Spear. I asked him, if he could fill in for the video. It really slims up the time of how many shots you need to do and how much I need to relearn. So I just sent him the track. I was like, hey, learn the drums to this. And he was gracious enough to jump on the video and help me out with that. So
Nice. The For Today song, I said, okay, I got to listen to this because the proof is in the pudding here. If we can get through a For Today song, that was brutal. I loved it.
For Today is awesome.
They really are. Where did you learn to growl like that?
Right here. But in the household of musicians, we mainly, we play Christian contemporary music. So it's not really that extreme. So a lot of like my practice was done in the car when I was by myself. When I was about like 18 or so, I started just practicing out in the car so I wouldn't annoy everybody. Yeah.
So that means that you had some influences early on that made you want to do that. Who are your influences?
Oh, for sure. Wolves of the Gate, even though I sound nothing like Nick Deddy. Him, Disciple, and For Today, of course. And some O Sleeper. Those were like the first few people I picked up on, and I was like, I definitely want to do that. Because for me, my vocal range, my clean singing vocal range is not super high. Just can't get up there. And so for me, it was like, that's a way that I can add that intensity that maybe a nice high note would have, is just throw some screams on there. It'll give it a pinnacle moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I heard a couple of blaz too.
Yeah, a couple blaz.
I was teasing Leroy from War of Ages. I said, please tell me when you're leading music at your church that a bleh comes out every once in a while.
Oh, that's another band. I don't want to leave them out. War of Ages for sure was in that lineup. Yes. Oh, for sure.
Backstage with Mothership returns after this. Check us out on Facebook at I'm with Mothership.
Okay, so we know you do covers, but you also do your original music. Tell us more about that.
So I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I put out my first album. It's an 8-song album, so I don't know if you'd still consider that an EP.
That's an album.
Sure. Okay, we'll go with that. But the beginning of 2020, I put out an album called Oh Propitiation. And yeah, it's just 8 songs talking about various things, very biblically based stuff. And then the only song that's kind of like not necessarily in that niche of kind of like biblical exposition, I guess, it would be Life Erased, and that one's talking about abortion. But yeah, the majority of that is just solid biblical truth and things like that.
Well, I know I listened to Conform Me. That's a really good song. Not gonna lie.
Thank you.
Got a nice melody to it, but then it's got really deep lyrics, and then it gets heavy too.
Yeah, that was probably the fastest turnaround time on a song for me. It's definitely my favorite song. It just happened very fast, and it's a lot of just word for word scripture. I think that's probably why it hits so hard. It's because, the scripture divides bone and marrow. It doesn't return void. There's nothing more powerful than scripture. So I'm like, if I can somehow fit a nice melody with a just straight word for word scripture, I'll do it, so.
Or scream it.
Yeah, or scream it.
Tell everybody about the song. I know you did a little video on YouTube about the meaning behind it. Can you give us more detail about that particular song? So
Conform Me, the whole thing behind that song is Christ, the Lord of our life. Is anything, vying to share lordship with him, there's so many times where you go to church and that's when you're a Christian, and you come out of church, you're this, that, and the other. But scriptures would call us to, we're a Christian in everything. I work at a music store, but I'm not simply an employee. I'm a Christian there too, shining the light of Christ at all times. Like, there's not a time when I stop being a Christian because I'm doing something else or I'm in front of certain people. We've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer us who live, but Christ lives in us. So it's a constant thing. And that's kind of the main point of that song.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It's solid, just biblical truth.
What are your musical goals? Would you like to do some more albums? Would you like to have a touring band? What's on the horizon for you?
Honestly, yeah, probably for now, just doing the YouTube thing for a bit. Like the whole band idea, I've definitely thought about it. I'm not opposed to it. It's definitely a hard thing to find solid metal musicians that are also Christians, like in my immediate vicinity. I know many of them spread out through, the country. That's pretty much where all my metalhead friends are. They're like in Texas, or
Nashville,
somewhere else.
Texas.
But, yeah. Right, exactly. They're all spread out. And so, finding people like that in my immediate area that are solid Christians and solid musicians, that's been the difficulty, and aren't busy with, kids and family and all those things too. So yeah, for now it's like I'm okay being a solo artist, and I'll do the YouTube thing, and maybe I'll throw some people together to do a tour if it calls for it, so we'll see what happens.
How can people get your music?
It's pretty much everywhere that music is sold. So you just search Ben S. Dixon. You should be able to find it.
Okay. So Spotify also?
Yeah, Spotify as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can buy it and you can stream it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, there are probably 2 or 3 people that don't know about you yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of a nobody right now, but I'm okay with that.
You really impressed me when I listened to your cover. I was thinking, this isn't just your normal everyday cover. This guy's got some raw talent, and you're just getting started.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Tell me what makes you like a song. Is it the melody or the lyrics? What is it for you?
I guess, yeah, it's got to be like a solid structure, but I think the biggest thing for me is how theologically sound the lyrics are. There's so many times where the lyrics are talking about a problem that we face, or depression and anxiety, but it's not talking about the cure explicitly. Like, yes, depression exists, but Christ is the cure, and making sure that is well known in explanation and biblically true, Mm-hmm. So like that's the reason I love Wolves of the Gate. Those guys are on point with their lyrics. That's probably the biggest thing. And then obviously, yeah, the melody, and I like a good combination of screaming and clean vocals.
Mm-hmm. If you could work with any musician, who would it be?
Definitely Steve from Wolves of the Gate. I'll probably say Wolves of the Gate like 50 more times on this, but
just keep saying Wolves at the Gate. Wolves at the Gate.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Steve.
Okay, Steve, you heard it here. Ben wants to work with you. You should be hearing from him shortly. What is on your bucket list?
Wow. Not one I've given a lot of thought to. I guess, I don't know, to live a Christ-like life really is, that's the biggest thing, to be clear in my message to people about what the gospel is, the power of God into salvation. And yeah.
So that's the whole bucket.
Pretty much, I guess. Yeah.
Would you like to share a little bit of your testimony?
Well, for me, I grew up in a Christian household. Like I was saying, we're all musicians. My dad was a worship leader. And so like that was definitely a big influence for me. I now lead worship as well. Not a main worship leader, but I fill in here and there. So I looked up to my dad in that. And so I grew up in a Christian household. So I always had a very basic understanding. I was a Christian at a young age. But things didn't really click for me. Like I understood, Christ died for me and took away my sins, all those things. But things didn't really start to click for me until I was, maybe 14, 15, somewhere in there. When I started taking my walk seriously, started having a daily time in the scriptures so I can understand what it is that God tells me to do, get to know the one who saved me. So yeah, it wasn't until that age when that happened. So I don't have some crazy testimony of things I went through. But I guess the biggest thing is realizing that just because I didn't go through all this stuff and look like somebody who's drug abuse and all this stuff, I was still a filthy, rotten sinner who needed God's grace as much as anybody else. The Lord, he knows the heart and the intentions. And he sees my sin that was maybe hidden from everybody. It's open and laid bare before the Lord. And I'm on the same level as that filthy, rotten person that's in a jail. I'm the same. And I needed God's grace just as much. And so that's what clicked for me. It's like, no, the playing field has been leveled. We all have fallen short of the glory of God, and we all need his grace. And then I wanted to write music about that.
And you're right. Some people think they have to have some sort of dynamic, radical testimony. It's okay to be raised in a Christian home and never really have strayed far and still know you're in need of salvation.
Exactly.
You're listening to Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio.
Have you ever done any kind of touring?
I haven't, no. I haven't even been to a lot of shows and things like that. I've been to one metal show.
Poor child.
Yep. No, I just, I don't know, never really made the time for it and stuff. And where I am, a lot of metal bands come through Richmond, Virginia, which is about 3 hours away, roughly. And so when Wolves of the Gate were coming through town, I was like, I'm going to see Wolves of the Gate because they're close-ish. And so I went out there to see that. How am I not
surprised that's the only band you've seen?
Right, yeah. It's them, and Dens was there that day too. Uh-huh. So I saw them out there. They're actually from this area too. I believe they're based in Richmond.
Oh, that's right, they are.
Yeah.
And last week they were at my house.
Yeah.
Eating vegetable soup and banana pudding. We had a blast. It was great. They are great guys. They really are.
Yeah, they are cool. Yeah, for sure.
So I can't ask you what your favorite tour snacks are. What am I going to do? What are your favorite snacks?
Oh, man.
My
favorite snack. Wow.
If you're on a trip,
I don't know,
somewhere.
beef jerky. Beef
there
jerky, I guess. There we go. That's pretty solid.
That's a pretty solid answer. It seems like it's beef jerky and sunflower seeds are the number one and number two on the list.
When I was 10, maybe sunflower seeds, but yeah, no.
You've outgrown them.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, well, I've just heard that it helps keep people awake when they're.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Yeah. Maybe if I tour one day, they'll become a favorite snack.
There you go. We'll have to see. Well, hopefully that'll come about. You've got some things coming up? Well,
nothing that's like locked down necessarily. I'm working on a few singles that might turn into an EP. So it's kind of loose. And I'm working on an acoustic EP. So it'll be some songs from some of the singles that I've released and some songs from the first album that I put out, but in acoustic. So for, relatives and people who are not into the screaminess, they can still be edified by the music. So
yeah, well, good. Something for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
That is nice for people to get a chance to hear the music and vocals in a whole new way.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. Have you got another cover that you're working on?
I am. I'm working on a Chris Tomlin cover of his song called Home. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that one I'm working on with a drummer. I think it's called Io Kane Drums or something like that, and I'm blanking on it. But he's going to be collaborating on it. He's a very good drummer. But I love just finding people who are kind of doing the same thing and pulling them in on my covers. And it's a lot of fun to split up the workload and do that with other people. It's cool.
Be creative with other people is great.
Oh, yeah.
Gives it a slightly different flavor.
Absolutely.
Do you help other artists?
I do some mixing. I've mixed for one local band here, and I did mix and master This Surrender, their album that they put out this year, actually.
Okay, James Franchise.
Yeah, with James Franchise, yeah. So I mixed.
Our worlds collide.
Yes.
You may or may not know I interviewed him back in January this year.
Oh, yeah.
True story. I was at Kingdom Come Festival, and I had not paid attention who was up on the stage next. I had my back turned to the stage, and all of a sudden I heard a voice, and I went, that's James Franchise.
Oh, yeah. You hear his voice, you're like, that's James. Oh, my God. Yep.
And so there he was up on the stage, and I couldn't wait to give him a big hug. It was like, James! Yeah, y'all have a very similar MO, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Like, I bumped into him and started working with him because I was doing the same thing, and I saw, who's this guy doing covers too? And so I clicked on his stuff, and I don't remember how we connected and started talking, but we started working on music together and found a few other people who are kind of doing that niche, and we kind of started doing something. We actually have a project with him, a little internet band with him called Venerant Hearts. And that's something where, we're just kind of, when we have the time, we'll put together a cover. We only have 3 up right now. But, it's kind of the same thing, but with me, him, and there's a guy from a band called Windvent, based down in Mexico. Lewis is his name, and us 3, we make up this little internet band. And we just, when we all have the time, we'll put something together and put it on there.
That sounds like fun.
It is.
I love it when creatives get together and brainstorm.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ben, thank you for taking time to do this interview.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
It is great to talk to you, and I hope to see you one day out on the road somewhere.
Right on. It was great meeting you.
Great to meet you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening tonight. Stay tuned for more great music all night long. Be sure to check out my I'm with Mothership Facebook page and Solid Rock Radio's website. Follow the link under shows to Backstage with Mothership, which will have the links to my guests' social media accounts. This show will be replayed at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Past interviews available on podcast.solidrockradio.org, iHeartRadio,
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Pandora platforms. And remember this week, be kind to one another.